Welcome to Money on Tap, your personal finance headquarters. Money on Tap is where we bring out the professionals, experience, and some fun in what we call three-dimensional investing, utilizing insurance, brokerage, and fee-based planning. That's what we do on this radio show or podcast or however you're grabbing us today. Thanks for joining us. We look forward to taking a look at all sides of the issues here at Money on Tap and bringing a fully independent planning perspective to the table. My name's Seth Krussman, and I'm joined here once again with John Ryder and Ben Brayshaw. Good morning, guys.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Hey, it's also good to welcome back Eric Morton from The Couve. If you're familiar with Eric or heard him before, hey, how are you doing, buddy?
Doing well. Thanks for having me, guys.
You bet. You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or email us at info@yourmoneyontap.com. You can also find us at Facebook, 3D Investing, or, Twitter, BFG_LLC. That's where we're twittering at, or I'm twittering at. I feel so funny all the time saying that. It's the hardest thing for me to say that I tweet, but I do.
It's okay. It's okay. Hey, it's nice to have John Ryder back. I mean, he's been out for a little while sick.
I have. I am back. I am back and better than ever.
Have you been tweeting, John?
I have not been. I have not been. I have been not doing much of anything, quite honestly. But no, it's good to be back again. Thank you.
It was hard for me to say that it was good to have him back. I just want to know. I was stretching there. I just wanted to be.
That was a little stretch of the truth there, Ben. I noticed that. I didn't want to say anything, but that was a little stretch of the truth, as I didn't want to have to bring that up. But yes, I am back.
Making it through the day.
Was that staged or was that real?
Oh.
That was real.
My gosh, John, what are you doing? Oh my gosh, you're incredible. Thank you, buddy, for making this possible for us today. We're glad you're here. Today is part 2 of the Retirement Tsunami. In our last episode, we talked about a lot of the problems we're having here in the United States in regards to the aging population. And last week, we talked about, what some of those problems are. But today, as always, we want to talk about some solutions, some steps for you as an investor, perhaps future retiree, what you can do to make things better for yourself. If you have knowledge about what could or could not happen, then typically we want to try to use that knowledge for information to help make better decisions on things that can really impact the future.
Seth, as we talked about last week, there's certainly a lot of negative factors concerning a record number of Americans turning 65. We have 10,000 people a day that are turning 65 in our country today. So we're not going to go there with all the negatives this week. But today we would like to share with you some proactive steps that you can take to make sure that you are in the best possible situation so that you can make sure that you're not part of those negative statistics. But before we get to this important topic, it's time for Money in the News, where we talk about a couple of different articles in the news that have to do with you and your money. So, guys, I don't know if you saw the first article here. How about that job that the Buffalo Bills is offering everyone?
This actually sounds like a pretty decent deal. I don't know about you, but if the Pats were off, if Belichick was saying, "Listen, come shovel out the stadium for me," I'd be there 4+ hours.
Yeah. So the headline here is Buffalo Bills will give you money and free NFL ticket if you're willing to do one small thing for them. That one small thing involves bringing a shovel with you on game day. Actually, probably pregame day. but Buffalo, New York obviously gets hammered with snow. I mean, it's amazing. We always think here in New England that we get a lot of snow. And then you turn on the TV and you see that they're getting 10 feet out there. Suddenly, the 3 feet that we're getting is not much.
Plus the kind of snow that they get. It's that lake effect snow that is really heavy. Like it's deep, and then it just gets heavy, like really nasty fast.
So that 4 hours would actually end up being shoveling for the amount of snow that you actually could shovel away is not that much because it's so heavy. It's ridiculous out there.
Well, Absolutely. They get fed too.
Yeah. Hey, so that's not such a bad deal. I don't know. That's probably worth $100 here in
I mean, I could sit down for 2 meals, lunch and dinner that they're offering for an hour each, and then cut my shoveling time down to 2.
They're paying $12 an hour, but it sounds like they're throwing in a ticket The Bills have said that any fan who shovels snow for 4 or more hours will get 1 free ticket to Sunday's game against the Jets. So basically, if you shovel snow for 4 hours on Friday, you'll get a free NFL ticket. You'll get at least 1 free meal, and you'll make $48, which you can then immediately spend on a Christmas present for your dad, since you probably haven't bought him anything yet.
The problem is it's probably going to be an away game.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, they're like, you get a ticket to see the Dolphins.
Yes. Well, they would probably go for that.
I don't even want to bring up the Dolphins after yesterday.
Oh, gosh.
Oh, my goodness.
Oh, I do.
my goodness.
I'd love to talk about.
Okay, real quick, Seth, what do you want to say about that great game yesterday?
Play of the week. I just kept watching that crazy play.
That was a great game until the last 7 seconds. It was a great game.
Oh, my gosh. That was ridiculous. My favorite part of this article is the little shot that they took at our neighbors to the north where it said, "This is such a good offer that even people from Canada are willing to help." I was like, what are they saying here?
Or the Bills are so bad that they're just like that basically you have to get Canadians involved at this point, because I mean, nobody in their right mind in the lower 48 would say, "Yeah, sure, sign me up for that."
let's broaden our scope to get this snow taken care of.
Oh, I love it.
Even with Canada being more socialistic than us, they're willing to work for money.
And, a little note is that there was a pay raise involved. So in 2018,
up $1 an hour.
We're up $1.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
I bet you most of the people shoveling are from Canada, because that's where most of their fans probably come from.
Yeah, I've got to see pictures of this, because I'm curious how many people it takes before do they cut it off at some point, because they just have way too many people, and then it wouldn't take 4 hours; it would just take like 2 hours.
These people have to be otherwise not employed either. I mean, if they're sitting around set on Friday, maybe, I don't know, some of those fans tailgate pretty long, I guess, but starting on Friday, most folks you think would be employed in some other way, but I guess there's people that are not.
If I lived close by, I'd take my 3 boys. It would be something that they would tell stories about. It'd be like, my dad is so cheap that we had to go and shovel snow for 4 hours for him to take me to a football game I didn't even want to go see.
And he wouldn't even buy me lunch, but they did.
Yeah, he wouldn't even give me a soda to go along with the free lunch.
So speaking about entrepreneurs and all, because obviously those are entrepreneurs there that are digging out Buffalo Bill Stadium. Our second story is actually from Yahoo Finance, which to me, I don't know, it's been a while since most of us here have been in college. Been longer for some of us than others. Okay, so this is from Yahoo Finance, and this is an exclusive. And they actually did an interview with the president of a company called Moe's Coursework Completion Services. And this guy, interestingly enough, the title says, "Paper Mill Owner Details His Lucrative Academic Fraud Business." So now you guys may be much more familiar with this than I am as far as hiring people to write your papers. But anyway, I don't know. I don't know.
What are you implying?
Well,
John, I take offense to this.
So this guy does coursework and actually writes papers for students. He has a website, and he's making as much as, get this, $21,000 per month writing papers for his students, for students at various education levels. It could be people that are in their undergrad. It could be people that are in their like a master's degree, or even people that are getting their PhD. Now, how in the world, one of the things I was wondering about this, and they didn't really detail this in the article too much, but they don't talk too much about how the papers do. I mean, are they getting A's, B's, C's? I don't know what's happening here. But this guy began as a tutor, making $75 a day, and now he is actually just out there on the internet making money. It's the strangest thing in the world.
Through Facebook too. I mean, it's like this is all referrals. I mean, this is crazy that he's making this much money doing this.
I think I may have heard that if you were to get a B or A, the rate goes up.
Yeah, I can imagine that.
After that, but I've only heard that. I don't know anything about it.
Not personal experience. No.
Yeah.
No.
Well, what I think is really interesting about this is fraudulent paper writing is nothing new to our to the world. He's got a bunch of people writing these papers part-time, and he's making the big bang buck dollars here. Just the amount of time it takes to write a paper. So like if you went to this guy, I'm just trying to think of all the papers I wrote in college, and if you went to this guy and then said, "Hey, this is the paper I need," and so forth, how much of this stuff is he grabbing out of like predefined information in coursework.
Well, he says everything is in Google. It's all there, so I have no problem pulling out the information I need. That's what he says in one of the paragraphs.
And I do have some experience with you. You would throw your paper through. We had some professors that would say they would check your paper for plagiarism,
Yeah.
And you throw it through the deal. And so I think they've got to have some sort of guarantee and then something else. But it's staggering to know that he only has 6 part-time employees. So
yeah, and he's doing 10
he's making 20 grand.
Yeah, 10 papers a day.
What's the confidentiality? I mean, all they need to do is someone needs to hack this guy, find out, and take all the degrees back from these people. Pretty dangerous.
And it's funny because the interviewer, I watched a video that was associated with this. The interviewer was saying, well, don't you feel bad that you're getting all this information for them? He says, no. I know if people are always going to find a way to cheat. So he basically was saying, yeah, if I can make it a little easier for them, well, it's not going to hurt me as long as I can make some money. So he says people don't mind. They're lazy. At the end of the day, people are always going to find a way to cheat, no matter what the situation is, no matter what school you go to. Students are always finding ways to get through the system. So it is what it is.
So, at what point, do you draw this moral line around this? Because basically, this is just outsourcing work.
Yeah.
I mean, handing off some chores to my kids. If they were to somehow convince the other kids in the neighborhood to come over and do the chores for them, I would, or pay them a cut of the whatever that is. I'd be like, that's awesome.
Like Tom Sawyer.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, we do it all the time.
A different scenario. Okay. This is straight up wrong.
All right. You're right. Yes, you're right. But there's an interesting conversation there. That's all.
But this is so wrong because you're just totally paying for someone else's work to get what you have to get, which is obviously cheating. It's not following the rules. It's basically the degree that you're getting is not really your degree. It's maybe some work you've done, but maybe a lot of everyone else's work too. So yeah, it's just crazy.
I always like to pick out the fun little the backstory, and he talks about his mother-in-law and wife not too happy that he's doing it. I'm like, I wonder if they're happy about the cash that he's making.
Yeah, they're happy to spend the cash, but I really don't like the way you're making it. Yeah, I know. Isn't that kind of funny? He's just like, oh my goodness. So.
I need to know more about that relationship.
I don't think it's going to last for very long. I don't know. Who knows?
You're listening to Money on Tap. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Hi, my name is Ben Brayshaw, one of the co-hosts of Money on Tap. If you have questions when it comes to your retirement and are looking for a personalized solution, contact us at Brayshaw Financial Group. In today's volatile stock market, we can help you plan to find your successful retirement solution. Am I saving enough? Am I saving into the right places? Do my investments match my appetite for risk? Do I have a tax strategy that is going to help me keep more of what I earn? How can I maximize my Social Security income? If you are like most people, you are getting closer and closer to your retirement and may be wondering if you're taking the right steps. If you're in retirement, you may be wondering, am I maximizing my income while preserving my estate and caring for my family? We talk about all things financial in what we call three-dimensional investing, putting a plan around your financial future. If you feel that now is the time to start getting the answers to some of these questions for your own situation, give us a call at Brayshaw Financial Group at 855-226-8551. Headquartered in Bedford, New Hampshire, we have offices throughout New England and across the country. We would love the opportunity to show you how we can help. There's absolutely no cost or obligation just to meet with us, and we welcome you to our office. Call us at 855-226-8551.
More Money on Tap in just a moment. On this edition of our Money on Tap Cliff Notes, John Ryder shares one of the more unusual questions posed to him by a client about an insurance policy.
The most bizarre question that I have ever gotten was from an assigned client. And this guy had a life insurance policy through the company in which I work. This was not a policy, again, that I had sold him, but he said he wanted to know what the suicide clause was on the policy. I didn't know the client, but it was kind of unsettling. I was kind of like, that's kind of weird. He didn't really want to chit-chat at all. He didn't want to really talk much, but he just asked me politely what it was. Now, if people don't know this, there's typically a 2-year clause in the policy, which basically means if you attempt to take your life in the first 2 years of the policy doesn't even pay out, but it will only pay the premium back that was paid in the policy. So I don't remember what my exact conversation with him was, but in looking up his policy, he had it for a number of years and it would have paid out. So I think I said something to him about it, but there may be other solutions for him to consider is kind of what I was saying. To my knowledge, there's never a death claim on the policy, but it was really a pretty unusual question.
Thanks for joining us for this Cliff Notes edition of Money on Tap, with great tips from the pros in three-dimensional investing, utilizing insurance, brokerage, and fee-based planning. Now here's more Money on Tap with Seth, Ben, and John.
Welcome back. You're listening to Money on Tap, your personal finance headquarters. That's where we bring out professionals' experience and some fun and what we call three-dimensional investing. You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or email us at info@yourmoneyontap.com. And if you are listening to us by podcast, it's great that you're joining us. We appreciate you liking us on those venues. Those are all great things as far as helping us out here at Money on Tap. So thank you very much for doing that. And we are talking about a retirement tsunami, part 2. We're going to be in solution mode around what's going on with with the demographics and everything. But before we get to that, I think we'd like to spend a little bit of time kind of introducing people to, what is it like to work with us as financial planners?
Yeah, I think, Seth, before we get into the retirement tsunami conversation again, which I think is going to offer huge insight for people who haven't really heard the story and the direction investments and your portfolio probably should be looking at as an opportunity. We've had a lot of feedback from that show we did, the No Judgment Zone. A few different people have come into the office and just said, you did that show and it just really encouraged me to say, let me give them a call. What's really gonna happen here and so forth. And one of the questions that we get is what's the process? How do we work with you? How do we answer questions for you and so forth? And how do we try to give people just even the subtle advice, even if they're not clients, and just try to give them the right direction? Because we get a lot of calls in, people who maybe they need to do some debt consolidation, or they have a mortgage they should be refinancing, and they just need some direction on some of these pieces. And what we do and how we do it is really simple. We really just start with a phone call.
Right.
You call in, we chat with you, we try to figure out exactly what your situation is in your position. If it requires further conversation, what we'll do is we usually send out a financial questionnaire. And that questionnaire really just is meant to ask you the right questions for us to help you. We can send you a laundry list, but then people just don't know. So we just ask people, hey, fill out this stuff generically. Don't labor over it. Don't make it an intensive, huge project. Just simply put down the basic information. If you have a 401k and it's worth $300,000 or it's worth $150,000 or you got 20 grand in there and you're trying to figure it out, just write those numbers down. Give us some sort of kind of sketched diagram.
That's what I always call it, kind of like a financial snapshot, just so we can kind of see. This does not have to be overly detailed, as you're saying, Ben. We always tell people, hey, don't labor too much over it. But, when it comes to financial planning, there's really a lot of different areas that we address when we're talking with people. Sometimes we help people reallocate their 401ks. Sometimes we help answer an important question that question would be, hey, can I afford to retire right now? Sometimes we have people that maybe have been offered a buyout. Maybe they have a 401k that's really been building up a lot over the years, and they're like, you know what? Maybe now is the time. Sometimes what we do is we'll do a review of current life insurance coverages. But I think we've been doing that a lot lately with video show listeners coming in, helping to review, making sure that their long-term care and their life insurance is up to date.
Yeah, we did a few shows on that, and people started coming in and so forth. Yeah.
Other times there's people that are looking for help reducing their taxes. There's some people that are looking for, hey, how can I help put an education plan in place for my kids? They may even be looking at their current plans that they have in place and say, hey, am I taking too much risk in my current plan?
And that's a little bit where we're going to go today in our show. I think that's where the retirement tsunami conversation is going to really expand people's perspective on how they should invest. Are they giving that enough attention? And are they overweighted the wrong way?
And you know what, Ben? Sometimes we see people that come in, and one of the largest, biggest questions that we see often is, hey, am I diversified enough in my portfolio? And we see all kinds of stuff. Sometimes, I can remember one not too long ago where we had a client come in that was just asking about diversification, and he worked for IBM and had just about all of his money at IBM. Now, IBM, great company, is going to be around, has been around for a long time. It's going to be around for a long time in the future. However, having close to 100% of your 401k invested in that IBM stock may not be the best idea. So we were able to help him diversify a little bit there. So
maybe change the risk that you've got throughout your life, you've got to have different time frames of when you're going to take on more risk or when you're take on less risk. And that's a big thing that is addressed.
Absolutely. Dial it up or dial it back. Yep, for sure.
I can't tell you how many times we, bring people in and we're discussing where they're at. Most of the time people have some kind of a 401k plan. And the most common allocation in that is to have like a target date fund. But if they're, using a target date fund, one of the things that they're not thinking about is that, that target date fund might have been set the risk too low for them to be really getting where they need to go, because they might need to take more risk on because they're needing to catch up or they're needing to contribute more. And that's just one of the things that we do, gratis, is really try to address what are the assets that they have and try to help them put those into place where they should be.
The target date fund, I was making a presentation to a company the other day, and someone brought up the target date funds. And, we can't give specific advice to people when we don't know them really well, or they haven't really given us full open architecture of what's going on financially for them. But the target date funds are interesting because the retirement tsunami and what's happening in our world is one thing. Okay, we've talked about that last show. We're going to talk about it again. But the other side of it is how these target date funds are set up is based on all this historical data, all this information that is kind of what we believe to be standardized and consistent and relevant. And that retirement tsunami is creating a lot of irrelevance to this stuff. And it's creating a lot of potential swing to how investing should occur moving forward. I think with all of that, the one thing that people need to know is that when you come in, you talk to us, or you're on the phone with us, we're bound by confidentiality. We're fiduciaries. We have an obligation to care for you, no matter how you come in. And those are important pieces to what we do. And so, no matter who you are or what you're doing or what the scenario is, if you're writing papers for somebody and, who's in college, whatever, what we do is we manage money and we help people understand how that is. And John, you mentioned, am I diversified enough? Some people think they are diversified, and when they come in, they realize, I'm not diversified, like at all. They have a perspective of what they've learned or what they've been taught or what they've been told. But, I look at some of these target date funds, and there are so many lawsuits out there over these things for one thing or another that, this retirement tsunami is probably going to potentially create more upheaval in that marketplace. And that's one concern I really have for a lot of people out there who are relying on these things.
Guys, back on earlier this year, we had a show entitled When Target Date Funds Hit the Fan. I mean, there are some certain there's some problems where
I remember that one. That was a good one.
Yeah, there can be times when target date funds can work out well, but there can be other times where it can be pretty rough. So we'll certainly spend some more time about that. But basically, one of the things that we often do just starting out is, as Ben mentioned before, get that confidential client questionnaire. We can either send this in the mail to you. We can have you come in and we can send an email. Doesn't matter. We can get it to you however you want. And then if you can get it back to us before our meeting, great. If not, that's fine too.
Yeah, I want to just talk about a call that happened this last week where basically this was a referral through a CPA that we were discussing in trying to help somebody out. What had happened is they had taken a distribution from their 401k, and they thought that they had 90 days to roll that over. And, this is one of those scenarios that we were past a 60-day window, because that's what you have is 60 days to roll over qualified money. And so we were in a situation trying to figure out how can we help mitigate a really significant taxable consequence to that scenario. That's one of those scenarios where just picking up the phone, we didn't need a financial questionnaire to get you the information that you needed to get that money rolled over in 60 days. Like that's the answer. You don't have to spend 5 minutes filling out your whole situation for us to be able to help you do that. And nor would we want that to become what keeps you from picking up the phone and getting the answer to your question. So, we have those triage kind of scenarios that happen as well. And, and we're still able to, get some good information to them, some right information to help them manage that the best that they can at this point. But there's a lot that we can do on the front end just by picking up the phone, giving us a call. You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or email us at info@yourmoneyontap.com. And, again, there's the social media outlets, so you can find us there and connect with us however it works best for you.
Ben, can you outline for us kind of what it looks like after someone sent their questionnaire in, after they've been called by our office staff just to get an appointment set? Can you kind of outline kind of what that first appointment typically looks like? So people will come in, they sent the questionnaire in, maybe we've had a short conversation on the phone about their situation. Can you kind of just outline kind of what that first meeting looks like?
Yeah. Primarily people will come in and they'll sit down and we share a cup of coffee, or a bottle of water or whatever they're looking for, and in that realm, and we just talk about concerns. We talk about goals and wants and desires and expectations, and we start looking at the pieces that they have, and those generic broadening pieces. They allow us from our background, our professional side, to say, hey, you got a hole here, you've got an opportunity here, or yeah, if you're getting a buyout from this company, maybe you could do this based on what you're telling me. It would take some work maybe, or like Seth had said, and I think that's, Seth made a great point too, that sometimes it's a quick answer. Like somebody just needs a little bit of direction. We had a couple come in, needed some work on some insurance stuff, but they're like, we walked through, we helped them work on their 401k allocations. We talked about that and some of their goals. And, when they retire, they're like, we'll have you guys manage that too. So it's not like, we understand that some of these assets that people have, are tied up, and there's nothing we can do other than help manage through the process of what they have. But the truth is success requires an oversight of everything. Success requires that you have somebody help you with all the pieces from start to finish. And that's what relationship building is all about. So I think, the first meeting is real. We're not talking about buying anything. We're not talking about, we're trying to figure out, what you're trying to accomplish and see if those pieces, work together. It's kind of like if you got a Lego set and you had the pieces for a Star Wars Lego piece, but you wanted some sort of ship, water ship kind of thing, like a boat. Well, then they're not going to work. So you have to understand that you have the right elements and pieces for what you want to create.
And one thing too, just for folks to understand too, is that when you come in, we're not going to charge you for our first meeting. There's actually no cost. This is basically just an exploratory time to see if what we do can be of help to you. And then if we can help you and we can talk to you about ideas and solutions that will help them, we'll get paid down the road. We'll talk to you about how that works and all. But really, there's really no risk. There's no obligation in coming in and chatting with us. So,
well, that's a great place for us to take a break. You're listening to Money on Tap. You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or email us at info@yourmoneyontap.com. We'll be right back.
A lengthy vacation requires some thoughtful and detailed planning, and few people would go on such a trip without the necessary preparation. On our Cliff Notes edition of Money on Tap, Seth Krussman shows us with his example that the same care and thoughtfulness should also be given to our retirement planning.
This is a journey. This is a project that you have an opportunity to invest in and to uncover and identify how you want to live your life. And I think how many times, we go on vacation. A great friend of mine took his whole family on a mission trip to Guatemala this last year, and that looked like a tremendous adventure. And how much planning does it take to get that to happen? I have no problem involving myself in creating a plan around something like that. And if I can get my mindset to be thinking that way, like, wow, I am planning the largest vacation of my life. How much fun can that be? And I can't wait to sit down and talk to you about that, right?
Thanks for joining us for this Cliff Notes edition of Money on Tap, with great tips from the pros in three-dimensional investing, utilizing insurance, brokerage, and fee-based planning. Now here's more Money on Tap with Seth, Ben, and John.
Welcome back. You're listening to Money on Tap, your personal finance headquarters, where we bring out the professionals' experience and some fun in what we call three-dimensional investing, utilizing insurance, brokerage, and fee-based planning. We're glad you're joining us, whether that's by radio or podcast. If you're a podcast listener, we appreciate you liking us or sharing us with some of the friends out there in the podcast world. You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or email us at info@yourmoneyontap.com. You can also find us at Facebook, 3D Investing, or Twitter if you prefer. Anyways, we're talking about a retirement tsunami. I love the I love the title there because it's super scary and it gets my attention immediately. But at the same time, it sounds really bad. What's going on, and we're potentially what could be happening in this retirement environment for people that are nearing that phase or in that phase. We want to talk about, again, solutions to what is happening right now for people that are of the retirement age or of that segment of our population.
Ben last week shared some excerpts of a recent speech that Cara Stein, the commissioner of the SEC, the Securities and Exchange Commission, she was giving a speech to the Brookings Institution. So in that speech, she talked about the economic challenges that people face in today's world regarding savings. And one of the things that she discussed in her speech was the fact that traditionally, since World War II, folks have relied on what is commonly known as the three-legged stool of retirement. So we always, in the past, have talked about, there's a stool out there that you have if you want to be safe and you want to be practical in your retirement. One stool is one leg of your stool is the pension, another leg would be your Social Security benefits, and another leg would be savings. So it's been common knowledge that any one of these three legs is not enough for most people in the retirement. So you can't just totally rely on your pension. You can't just rely on your Social Security benefits, and you can't just rely on your savings. So basically they're saying that the weight of that stool can be properly distributed by having a pension, having a Social Security, having a savings. But one of the things that she was mentioning in her speech was that in recent years, the three legs to that stool have become wobbly, and the financial health of the Social Security system has been greatly weakened. In fact, in 2018, the trustees' report on Social Security indicated that the Social Security fund will be depleted in 2034. That's only 16 years away. So that's one major leg of that stool that she's saying, you know what, you got to seriously reevaluate actually being able to put much weight on that side of that stool.
Well, yeah, and then, when you talk about this stool, this is we talk about the three-legged stool, but the truth is right, 4 legs would be better.
right.
So, and you don't want to put all your eggs in one basket when, it's wobbly, right? So that the concept of diversification inside these different realms is great, but when you have Social Security, John, as you had mentioned, as a big concern, the pension world, as we have talked about repetitively on this show, and we have done show after show on pensions because people don't understand their pension and they don't understand what's going on with pensions in general. But one of the big things is, will your pension be there? We're not fear mongers. We're not trying to create fear. When Obama was president, he created the Pension Reform Act of 2014, and that was for multi-employers to reform their pension payouts, to reduce the payout to people who were collecting their pension, to keep the pension stable, to keep it, financially sound, because they were running out of money. And the reason is because of this massive growth of all the people retiring. This retirement tsunami, which we talked about, is, we've got basically 30 to 40% of America going to be retired in the next 20 years. We're a little over 10% right now. We have a massive growth in population retiring. And all these people, if you can imagine a third of America saying, I want to collect my pension today. That's a huge drain on the cash available in these pensions. It's a huge drain on the need to provide the income that people have been promised. And, we've talked about New Hampshire being in the top 10 worst funded pensions in the state.
Right.
And John and I have sat down with people who have pensions in the state of New Hampshire, and their payouts have dropped significantly for the ones who are going to collect, who weren't collecting yet, that we were talking with. This one woman, I think we figured out that the pension payout was like 1 or 2%. Right, John?
Yeah,
it was horrendous. I could be incorrect, but it was horrendously low compared to other opportunities that they had out there. And it used to be a significantly stronger payout, and she had recognized that, it had really dropped, and she had noticed that. So this retirement tsunami, we talk about, John, you've talked about the Social Security being kind of a wobbly leg.
Yep.
And
the pension being a wobbly leg.
Right. And then how do you save enough in today's, we have inflation going up.
The one of the things I wanted to mention was talking with some of the younger folks that I do business with in the P&C industry, trying to get them to understand auto and home and renters and get a full picture of what they are going through. None of them have pensions. They just aren't offered. And so even the word pension is just not understood anymore because it's going away.
I think my grandfather had one of those, I think. Right.
Yeah, no, it's even not even grandfather. It's grandfather, great grandfather. I mean, it's been gone for so long. I think when I was working for Geico, they closed their pension about a year into it. So that was 15 years ago. I still qualified for that, and I've got something that's gonna still qualify down the road, hopefully. But that's how long ago these things were still being offered. It's a significant amount of time.
That's a great word, hopefully, because that's where everyone's at with their pension and Social Security, whether you're, in your 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, or 80s. I mean, people are like, well, I'm collecting it, but hopefully it's still there in 10 years. Hopefully it's still going strong. We hear that word a lot.
Sure.
A lot of uncertainty out there.
So sometimes, trying to understand what the numbers say can be a challenge, and bringing people up to speed on what is it going to take to really kind of get a goal in mind around their income. So let's say, personal savings, right? If you're age 65 planning for 30-year retirement, you need to have about 1.8 million in savings to generate roughly 75,000 a year. And if we're to take a look at an average on the 401k balances right now, this is according to National Institute of on Retirement Security, from age 55 to 64, kind of that retirement bandwidth or that swath of people looking to retire right now, it's on average around 88,000. And that will provide approximately $3,000 a year in income. So see the difference there.
Not enough.
Right. So, really a lot of what can happen. I mean, we talk a lot about trying to get returns and trying to, balance, kind of trigger different kind of income modes through different, ways that we can do that or take a look at that in the plan. But a lot of what has to happen is people have to do this blocking and tackling around the plan, and how do we start to build more around that savings program for them? Because there's really only so much that we can do when it comes to distributions and trying to have significant impact on those and what kind of taxability they have. And that's when we talk about diversification, it's a really big topic because there's all sorts of different ways to diversify. There's all sorts of different kinds of risks, but really that one of the best things that people can do is start to have a healthy habit around their financial life.
And I think, Seth, that's one of the things that we really see lacking today. People can go all the way through school, through high school, and then they can go all the way through college and still have no idea how to manage their finances.
Well, if they're having Mo write the paper,
that's right.
Of course, they're not going to have any idea.
Ask Mo; he knows. Yeah, but the truth is,
full circle. Good job.
Yeah, financial education has been very, very much lacking in our country when it comes to the need for savings and to see how risk and reward works. So, in our schools, in addition to reading, writing, and skills and mathematics, it's really important for students to have a better idea, better education when it comes to their own situation. So, if you think about this, education is not really enough, but I think it would help if you had a clear idea. Like one of the things that our kids have been seeing in school, they have a couple of years now where they actually set aside time in their semester where they go through the Dave Ramsey course, and they talk about really the importance of savings and how much, if they just start saving now and they start saving in small amounts now, what that can mean later on. Now, if the average 17 or 18-year-old hears that, and they say, hey, wow, if I can start saving a lot right now, that can make a big difference for me later on. And they start doing that. That can make a huge difference for people later on, and actually just getting an idea of what it takes, rather than just getting into their first job, not putting money into the 401k, not paying attention, but actually not being asleep at the wheel and actually getting things rolling at an earlier age.
Well, I think there's evidence of that just based on what Seth said. I mean, you got $1.8 million that people need in retirement to create the income that they're supposedly going to need. And they don't even have 5% of that on average between the ages of 55 and 64 years old. I mean, there's a ton of evidence there of a problem.
Yeah, and I'm going to say that those numbers have increased significantly recently. Market has been a part of that to be able to push those numbers higher.
But we're only 5% of what you need based on this report.
Right. You're absolutely right. I think there's a huge part of that, and I think we've talked about some of those things that are going to, some of the shifts in the demographic. We just have a population that is kind of aging later. Like there's more people working at 70 than we used to have.
I think really investing in the right places is important too. I don't know if you guys are big hockey fans or not. I'm not a huge hockey fan, but I don't think any of us has not heard of Wayne Gretzky and about his dad. Talking to him, and he said as a kid, he said to Wayne as he was a kid, "Hey, don't skate to where the puck is. Skate to where the puck is going." And I know that Gretzky had an uncommon ability to get to where he needed to go, and he had the athletic ability to get there. But really, that's one of the things that we want to talk about when we're talking with people that come into our office, and they say, "Hey, I have this fund here," and that's kind of where the demographic shift really comes in. And we talked about, well, let's not just invest where the money is returning right now. Let's talk about what's going to happen in the future and how we want to be positioned in the event that this retirement tsunami hits us as we see it hitting right now.
Yeah, I think this is the thing we try to educate people on pretty regularly, because we are in a historical demographic of returns that people have been investing for, since World War II, making money a certain way, making an allocation here in small cap, mid cap, large cap, whatever the story is that they've been told, this is how you do it. And, all of these people that have the majority of the money, which is the retirees, right? We've just talked about between 55 and 64, they have an average of $50,000, $60,000, $80,000. But the people who are retired are the ones who are going to have all the money. Those people are saving at record rates, because I always tell people, when you're first born, you don't really save. Your first thing when you hit a teenager is you buy a car, and then after you buy a car, right,
you pay for the maintenance on it to fix it.
Yeah, and then next thing you know, you buy a house, which is the largest investment of your life, and then you fill that house with kids, and then those kids go to college. I mean, the money is flowing out the door constantly. Then the kids are done with college. And what do? You pack every dollar from there on out away for retirement. You're not eating out as much. You realize that this needs to become a real focus. And so between 55 and 65 is the amplified years of savings. That is when people are putting the gust of their money away. But the thing that's happening is the to be retired and retirees have most of the money. There's like almost $20 trillion in retirement assets or something like that out there. I mean, that's as much as our national debt. So you think about an unfathomable number of money moving. All of these people are going to start saying, I don't want to own that small cap risk anymore. I want to move to something less risky, but my primary focus is income. And where do I find that income? What investments do I have in that income? Well, we all know the Tickle Me Elmo and the Cabbage Patch story about, I use that example all the time because you say those names and everyone laughs because they think of this person getting run over at Walmart and all the different craziness that happened. But just the sheer demand of those type of items made the value of those things go up tremendously high. People were selling those things on street corners for ridiculous money,
yeah,
and advertising in newspapers.
Yeah.
And now it would just be a Facebook ad, right? So, but the demand for that is huge. So if we know that all these people are leaving these higher risk assets that's based on some sort of historical standard, and they're moving to something that's maybe a more conservative play that focuses on income, don't you want to own it before they do? And so some of this stuff and some of these movements, I believe that the historical story of returns was based off of these baby boomers, and we have been living off of those returns forever. But when these baby boomers are fully retired, they're going to set up a whole new standard of normal and how we invest and how you make money. And people are, but the tide's going to shift, right? So if everyone starts shifting to lower risk assets that produced income, and that's where the returns are for the next 10 or 15 years, there's going to be a point in time where the higher risk assets are going to be deflated in value so far that they're super, super cheap. And they're cheap not because the underlying assets might be bad, but because the sheer risk people don't want to own. And so there's a point in time where that shift from owning low risk, potentially high returns, shifts to owning the higher risk assets that are so underpriced and so cheap that the return becomes there. And so there's this shift in understanding where these demographics, but I think we have these tsunamis going back and forth because people don't realize that these 120 million Americans retiring, that this is not a, oh, they're just retiring. This is an entire movement of all of their assets in a way that we've never seen before, in a dollar amount that's never been experienced.
And so many times, I think in the past, when it comes to investments, people have been extremely passive with their investments. We've seen that a lot with people coming in, and being passive might be just maybe owning a mutual fund, owning a target date fund, as we've talked about in the past.
Set it and forget it.
Yeah,
believe,
exactly.
Right?
Exactly, Eric. But one of the things that we really want to do is when we're meeting with our clients is to really have a tactical game plan in place and to help them put together a game plan to take advantage of some of these of the appreciation in assets. And I really look at this retirement tsunami. If you compare it to, hey, you know a storm is coming, and how can we best prepare, and how can we be best invested? Compare it to like a natural disaster that we all seem like we keep on hearing about. We hear about the fires in California. We hear about the flooding, the hurricanes out in Florida. Think about that if you're living in Florida. And think about the number of different ways in which we would be preparing for that coming. Think about this. If you were getting ready for the high winds, what are you going to do? You're going to do what you see everyone else on TV doing. You're going to be putting plywood over your windows. You're going to be getting sandbags for flooding. There's going to be possibly a loss of electricity. So what are you going to do? You're going to prepare. You're going to have candles. You're going to have flashlight. You might have cash to even barter if you need that. If there's going to be evacuation orders out there in Florida or California, wherever you may be, you're going to figure out, well, how are we going to comply? And so what I really want to make folks aware of is the fact that when you see people preparing in those ways, think about your retirement portfolio and how are you properly planning for the future and what's going to happen. Do you have the proper amount of cash on hand if something were to really go wrong? Is your portfolio being tactically managed, or are you just kind of like Eric said, hey, just kind of set it and forget it. It should all be fine. Do you have some guaranteed income sources out there? You know, the importance of having a guaranteed income is really, really important. There's ways in which you can do that. How about if you were to pass away, if your spouse were to pass away in this retirement tsunami that we see coming on? What would happen to your family if your income totally dropped out? What would happen if your spouse's income totally dropped out? What happens if there was to be a long-term care stay that was needed? How would that affect your assets? So there's so many different areas that we look at as financial planners and really help to assess how can we make things better for you when those bad times come.
You need not only the flood insurance for the property, but you need the flood insurance for the financial planner. And that's what you guys bring to the table. And us combined can help, levy that storm that's coming.
For sure.
Great images.
I want to jump in here, Seth, because John said something that's really interesting, and it just triggered me. We were chatting about where people are moving their investments. But if you start thinking about, and this is one thing we go through, and it's worth probably just mentioning since we're in this, we're talking about investment opportunities and so forth. And if people are moving to income-producing assets, and people are creating all this income, right? They're going to spend that income somewhere. And we talk about this pretty regularly with clients and people that come through our door just to understand what's going on. They're going to spend that money. If you have $20 trillion out there and you're going to create income out of it, and you're going to create, 4% income, so you're going to create, a ton of money coming through the door. They're going to spend it on things like vacations and utilities and food and travel and all these different pieces that they spend. Grandkids, owning the Elmo doll is, something worth having before. And I think I want to challenge people out there because it's not that some of the, we looked at, this year we've seen the tech market, skyrocket, and it has plummeted, and we've had this kind of, tech boom again, and people didn't realize that. We've chatted with a lot of people where the FANG stocks, Facebook, Apple, Amazon, Netflix, Google, had this skyrocketing year, and then they just plummeted, and we're, Apple's in danger of closing for first time in a very long time negative for a year. That's crazy having that conversation after the year we've had. But when some of the value stocks, those dividend stocks, and some of the more conservative things, they've seen less of a pullback, which is nice. But you also have those dividend yields that are coming in that are helping you, balance some of that. So there's some opportunities out there that people can look at in the large cap space that, value versus growth might play a a relevant piece for you. And that's something to talk to your advisor about and just get engaged with somebody who understands how the demographic is moving. If your advisor is telling you, this is the way we've made money over the last 20, 30 years, and this is the standard, and this is just the way we do it, I would say get some secondary advice. It doesn't need to be
I want to talk
from us.
about that.
Yeah.
That was a good lead, because that was really where I was going to start to jump in there around, some of the images that John was talking about around securing our homes for a storm. Some of those ideas that are out there that we're still working with in the financial services and the portfolio management is based off of a theory from 1956. That's called the modern portfolio theory. And that's where we get some of this diversification model, right, which has been very helpful to try to mitigate some of the risk that's come down from pullbacks in the market, and some of these glide path funds or these target date funds, which say, hey, we're gonna put more risk on early, like the younger you are, and then we're gonna slide that back into something that has less risk the closer you get to retirement. Well, that's all based off of models from 1956. So do we still have the same technology available to us today and the same understanding around markets now that we had in 1956? Okay, no. That's just not where we're at. And what Ben is talking about, and what John is talking about, what Eric is talking about here is understanding where we are and using what we have available to get ahead of the curve and protect you and get you into a place to take opportunities that just didn't exist before because we didn't know how to. Well, we're talking about trying to get you into a place where that's what you're a part of.
It's kind of like,
I love that.
Yeah, it's kind of like knowing the 2008 crash before it happened. It's kind of like knowing the real estate crash before it happens, and that's something to have. I mean, it's having it beforehand is huge, and people don't understand that there is foresight. There's not just standardized investing. Well,
this has been fantastic. We've had a good time talking today about a lot of different possibilities that can happen as we prepare for retirement. When planning for retirement, it's easy just to talk about the good things that can happen, and we want to. But as planners, it's really important for us to address things like we've discussed today, things that are about the demographics, things that are about this retirement tsunami that we're a part of. And, those topics are not always as much fun. So maybe you've been listening today and you're thinking, I need to start addressing some of the things that I've been putting off for a while. Maybe you've been listening and realizing you're a part of this retirement tsunami that's coming, and need to be a little more proactive about your planning, maybe a lot more proactive. Like anything else, preparing for retirement is certainly not a passive thing that just happens. We need to be proactive about what are we doing and what is happening in our portfolios, and how are our portfolios working for us or possibly no longer working. We'd love the opportunity to sit down with you, help you put a plan in place for your retirement, help you fine tune what you already have going. You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or email us at info@yourmoneyontap.com. It's been a lot of fun today, guys. Thanks a lot.
The views expressed are not necessarily the opinion of this radio station and should not be construed directly or indirectly as an offer to buy or sell any securities mentioned herein. Investing is subject to risks, including loss of principal invested. No strategy, product, material, or tool mentioned can assure a profit nor protect against loss. Please note that individual situations can vary. Therefore, the information, products, materials, or tools mentioned should be relied upon when coordinated with individual professional advice. Past performance is not a guarantee of future results. This show may be subsidized in whole or in part by a product sponsor or issuer. Securities and advisory services offered through SagePoint Financial Incorporated, member FINRA SIPC, and a registered investment advisor. All other services offered through Brayshaw Financial Group LLC are independent of SagePoint Financial. SagePoint Financial and Brayshaw Financial Group do not provide tax or legal advice. Main office is located at 116 South River Road, Bedford, New Hampshire, 03110, and can be reached at toll-free 855-226-8551.